Rob Moore, welcome to the Man of War podcast, man. It is an honor to have you on. Yes, great conversation on the way.
Thank you for having me. Let's go to war.
Let's hit it. Let's hit it. All right. So I've been following you for a very long time. And I've seen that, you've taken, your social media, your content, you've taken it to the next level. But more importantly, man, you're a very direct guy. You speak from the heart, you don't bullshit around. And that is so important to me because I truly, when I look at a man and I watch his every move and how he's building and creating, I want to see if the guy is sincere, right? Speaking from the heart. We call it sincerity of heart. And I think you have that. So you're an honest dude. You say it how it is. And that's very important for me. And you've been very successful. You've done a lot of things in the business world. And I would really like to dig in and kind of, feel your philosophy here. But before we get started, I would love first for you to introduce who you are. For those who don't follow you or maybe don't know who you are, I would love for you to give us a little bit of a glimpse of who Rob Moore is.
So I'm an entrepreneur, and my therapist always asks me, who else are you other than being an entrepreneur? And I guess I would say a father. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years properly, tried a few businesses before. I'm just writing my 21st book, although the 20th book hasn't yet been announced, although it gets announced this weekend. I broke the world record for the longest speech twice, individual team. I started in property investing 19 years ago, have maybe 350 rental units in our portfolio locally in our city. We're doing another couple of deals, which will probably add about £15 million to the value of our portfolio. Here in the UK, my business partner and I run the largest property training business. So this again it'll be its 20th year next year. And we've helped millions of people either learn about investing in property because it's not taught at school or university, which I think it should be.
Sure.
Or become investors. And then I have a podcast called Disruptors, which it'll be in its 10th anniversary next year. So I guess that's a little bit about my CV.
Awesome. Love it. So let's go back, man, because to build a portfolio like yours, I mean, it takes time, it takes knowledge. And you mentioned something that's key here. Schools aren't teaching you this, right? I mean, most men or individuals that graduate from school, they don't know anything about investing. So how did you get involved in investing?
Yeah, so I have my own global school called Money.School because my vision is to help as many people on the planet get better financial knowledge. And the reason I set that up 6 years ago was because I was £50,000 in debt in my mid-20s. And I got taught nothing about managing my money emotions, nothing about, real life liabilities. Rich dad, poor dad, he teaches the difference between assets and liabilities. But what about in real life, what goes up and what goes down? And, consumerism teaches you that you need everything and you need to buy it now and you need to buy it new and it'll make you feel good if you own it and it'll make you feel shit if you don't own it. So I racked up all this debt, £50,000, which probably relatively back then it was worth £100,000 because of inflation. And if you turn it into dollars, it's probably nearly $150,000 worth of debt. I had a degree in architecture, which I've done nothing with since. Not a thing. Doesn't help you for real estate.
Yeah, I got you.
It's a bit like, you learn Latin in school, but where do you use Latin in real life? I learned geography and French at school. Where do you do geography and French in real life? But no real estate was taught. No money management was taught. So I got myself in so much debt, it was pretty much over for me. A few more weeks and I'd have had to have gone bust. And then what happened was my dad was working in his pub, family pub. He'd had it for 10 years. He'd worked in pubs and bars and hotels that he owned 35 years of his life. And he had this big nervous breakdown, big, strong Northern English man, very stoic. Only ever saw him cry once when our Alsatian guard dog died. That was it. And yeah, he had this big nervous breakdown in the pub in front of maybe 100 customers, in front of me and my mum and my sister. He got beaten up and arrested by the police. He got sectioned. He got put in Ward 5, which is the mental institution part of our local
Wow.
city hospital.
Yeah.
And it was all a bit of a blur. I remember watching the police beat him up, and I back then I was not bad at martial arts, and I remember wanting to get involved and not having the courage to get involved,
Hmm.
and I regret that. And so I spent a few weeks hating myself and hiding away and feeling all this shame. Um, and then I thought, well, the only thing that could be worse is that my dad would have been killed. So why don't you go and try something for a change instead of being scared or worried about what people would think about you? So long story short is I went to this networking event locally that had been running for years. I didn't know about it
Hmm.
because a friend of a friend had said that like you can get into property without any of your own money. And I didn't have any money and I didn't believe that. And that first event I ever went to, I met my business partner there, who I've been business partners with now for nearly 20 years. And that's where it all started. So I was in this 50 grand's worth of debt. I was like part-time artist on the side trying to pay the bills. I was working in my dad's pub trying to pay the bills. I pitched these guys, I'll work for free if you teach me what you know and maybe pay me some commissions if I sell some deals. And I never knew how to sell anything. I couldn't even sell my own art. Anyway, they gave me a job on minimum wage, but £500 commission per deal sold. And in that first year, I sold enough deals to pay off my debt. I earned nearly six figures. I bought 20 properties on the evenings and weekends with my business partner. We used his money, his mum's money, his stepdad's money. And yeah, within that year, I was a real estate investor with 20 properties. And I'd got myself out of debt and I got a bit of knowledge around property and business. And I'd done some public speeches teaching people about my journey. And that year, 2006, was my breakthrough year, I suppose.
Wow. Very, very interesting. Now, through this process, you probably went through a bunch of different challenges, difficulties, things that you had to overcome. Did you have a strong mindset since you were little, or did you kind of develop them on the fly as you dealt with these obstacles?
Um, that's a really deep question, Rafa, because I think I had a lot of really big insecurities and vulnerabilities, but I think it was those that forged a good mindset, weirdly. So, like I believe in having mentors, being in masterminds, learning from people who've been there before. I've got coaches, mentors, billionaires. I've interviewed 1,300 people on my own show. I've got access to so many great people. I also think it's important to, at times, speak to a therapist. I think, a lot of men think that's weak. I think the opposite.
Hmm.
So through this entire journey of therapy, personal development, and mentors, when I was young, like in the cot young, I was left alone a lot because my mum and dad were always working in the pub and we would be upstairs. And then my sister and I would be left alone a lot and I would look after my sister from probably age 3.
Hmm.
So I have felt in my life a lot of loneliness. And even to this day, I could be very successful in a room full of people. Everything could be going good and I can feel very lonely.
Hmm.
Then my parents sent me to boarding school and I got really overweight. And so I was the fattest kid in my school for sort of like 3 years.
Hmm.
Boarding, and like kids don't bully the second fattest kid; they go for the fattest kid, and that
Yep.
was me.
Yep.
So I already felt pretty lonely and misunderstood just from how I was raised. And then on top of that, being the fattest kid, I hated school. I felt I was like really badly bullied, even though it probably wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So I built these conflict avoiding, people pleasing behaviors to fit in.
Hmm.
So I was the only kid in school who the rockers liked, the grungers liked, the metalers liked, the geeks liked, the sporty guys liked, all the different groups. because I learned how to adapt, fit in, people please, avoid conflict, avoid you calling me the fat fucker or whatever it is you'd call me.
Yep.
I was friends with all the girls, but none of them wanted to be with me, but I was friends with them. So I felt this loneliness and shame, but I learned really good, like adaptable people skills. But I hated conflict. So I lost all the weight. I got the girls. I got good at sport. I got captain of all the teams. I got straight A's because I was still trying to be loved and noticed, even though the weight had gone. The need to be noticed was just there.
Mm-hmm.
But I still was the conflict avoiding people pleaser who felt really lonely. And maybe at 46 years old, I'm still that guy. I don't know. But it also helped me develop some skills along the way.
Nice. Deep answer. I appreciate you sharing. That's an interesting journey. So you mentioned mentors, you mentioned, masterminds and getting around people of a little bit of a higher level. And I agree with you 100%. I've been in law enforcement for 18 years and built this company now that we are internationally recognized as one of the best companies in the world when it comes to empowering men. And it took a lot of work, but if I wasn't in a room with great men who were ahead of me, and I always say this, if you're the smartest, wisest, richest man in that room, you're in the wrong room, right? Getting around great people that inspire you. So your mentors in your life, where did you find them? Did you find them in these masterminds, in these groups, or were there people that actually took you under their wing?
So my first mentor was my dad because he got me working age 6 in his pub. I hated school. I loved working in the pub. And I would beg my dad to let me work whenever I could. And mum would always be like, he's got to do his schoolwork. And I just wanted to work. And all the way through until age 25, even though I was in debt because I was spending more than I was earning, which is something
Right.
you don't do. But I was really good at work and I loved work. So my first mentor was my dad because he taught me entrepreneurship age 6. I didn't get into entrepreneurship until age 26. It took me a while, but so he was my first mentor. Probably my next mentor was my business partner who I met because he didn't tell me because they don't when you meet them, but he was already a millionaire and he was already doing well. So I guess I got next to him in this small company and I would just watch and listen to how he would sell on the phone properties. I'd watch how he'd source properties.
I love
And I
that.
would just
Yeah.
kind of copy him really. And then
Yeah.
I'd read some books and listen to some CDs back when you had CDs in your car. And I'd do that in the evenings and in the weekends to try and catch up with him.
Right.
So I completely agree with you, Rafa. The thing with, if you're in a room full of people who are ahead of you, you're always trying to catch up and you end up going faster than them
Yes.
because you're catching them up. Same with training, same with anything. So my business partner was my second mentor until I caught him up. And then when I sort of figured, okay, this works, then I would just select them. So there's a UK property billionaire. We got him to mentor us in the early days of property. There's someone in the UK version of Shark Tank called Dragon's Den in the UK. We paid him and we got him as a mentor. And now, I'm in various masterminds where you have to be doing minimum 10 million a year just to get in the door. And
Yes.
I'm always looking for new mentors and coaches.
Yes.
It's the skill set, yes, but it's also the mindset. So, linking back to your previous question where you asked about mindset, and I gave you an answer which was more about my vulnerabilities. But for me, the best mindset teacher ever is running a business. Because, okay, look, fighting is great. And obviously, if you have to deal with difficult situations and hardship, that's great. But you learn it, business teaches you everything. And like if you're in a relationship and it fails, you leave, they leave, you might not see them again and you find another person. If you fall out with a friend, you don't talk again, you just move on. And you can kind of go through life
Yep.
having failed relationships, it doesn't really matter. But
Right.
you get into business and your relationships fail, you make no profit, you go bust. And then you can't start a company for 5 years.
Right.
So I learned to face conflict. I learned to shut my mouth. I learned to when to open my mouth. I learned to negotiate. I learned to sell. I learned the concept of a brand. I learned to deal with legal cases. I learned to be able to have thousands of haters and not give a fuck. I learned all of this from actually running a business.
I'm going to rewind here. Having haters and not giving a fuck. That is so important that you just made that statement. And this is what I try to teach here in our coaching programs and trying to level up the mindset of men that they get caught in this world where, some guys are just stepping into social media. They're putting their lives out there and they get, poison spit left and right from people that hate. How do you overcome? I know for me how I do it because we have thousands and thousands and thousands of haters that hate what we do because, they get triggered. I speak very direct, I'm to the point, and just very much like you. How do you overcome that sense of people, hating on you and then just kind of spitting poison your way? How do you handle that?
So a lot of people give very short answers to this, but I think there's a bit of context required. So I would say sometimes empathy, sometimes reality, sometimes challenge, and sometimes vision. So let's start with vision. My vision is to help as many people on the planet get better financial knowledge. You hate me, you're in my way. Get the fuck out of my way because I am on a mission. My mission is too important for me to care about your opinion of me. And let's say it gets through because look, I'm still the conflict avoiding, people pleasing, overweight, skinny guy. So sometimes if I respect you and you hate on me, that can hurt. Or if it comes in waves, it can hurt. Then all I do is go, yeah, but my mission is to help as many people on this planet get better financial knowledge. So don't get distracted. Now, one of my mentors, John DeMartini, he said, on your mission, you will collect followers, fans, lovers, and haters. You will collect them all. So vision always trumps having haters because the vision is always bigger than the haters. So vision number one. You have a meaningful vision. Elon Musk doesn't give a shit. Donald Trump doesn't give a shit because they've got important work to do. Like only meaningless people or situations are when hate is given out. Because when you're doing really fucking important work, you haven't got time to hate on anyone else. So that would be the vision part, the challenge part. Like, imagine if everyone just loved what we did all the time. The ego would love it, but that wouldn't be a challenge. It would be too easy. And by the way, we probably would be careless, whereas we're more careful when we have haters. We'd probably take more risks. We'd probably say stupid shit. So I love the challenge of having haters because one, they keep me honest. Two, that I know they're all there if I slip up. And also, I like the challenge of proving them wrong. There's nothing more satisfying than proving them wrong.
Amen.
So that would be the challenge part. Then I said empathy. So sometimes I get really frustrated. And then I realize they may have, like I've got a client in my community. He's been really active, brilliant client for the last few years. And he's had to just cancel his membership to all of our communities because he's got about 4 weeks to live. And one of my other clients is in our highest level mastermind. His son of 35 years, his 35-year-old son died last week.
Oh, boy.
And I sometimes look at all the hate and I think, maybe your son died. Or maybe you're going through some shit. And, when you show empathy for some of your haters, not all of them. Some
Right,
of them
I hear you.
deserve it.
Yep.
But quite a lot of the time you show some empathy, actually, one, you turn them into fans, but two, they might be going through something. So that's the empathy part. And then reality. It's just a reality. People are people. They behave how they behave. If people are hurt people, and that's what they do. And haters hate, and that's just normal, and who fucking cares? Next.
Yeah. I love it. So, I ran through a couple of situations where I love cars. I love cars to me they're one of my driving forces. I know that you love cars too. And, recently I posted something about my Rolls Royce, and was talking about the stitching in the car and the quality and whatever. And I've never had so much hatred of people just, saying, "Hey, you're just doing it to show off," or whatever it may be. And I'm speaking about the quality of the vehicle. The video was very, tamed down. It was specific about, living a life basically where you can go out there and experience quality, experience that next level. And people were just, spitting poison. And you're right. You're 100% right. Sometimes you got to deal with them, with reality. Sometimes you have to cross check them. Sometimes you have to have empathy and guide them in maybe in the right direction. So this is a very, very powerful answer that you gave us. And I hope that our listeners understand that you don't need to, go crazy if people are hating, because I believe that if you're doing something with meaning and with purpose, you're going to shake, rattle, and roll people. That's just the way of the world.
Amen. Now, here's the thing. If you have a shit car, people will hate on you. If you
Hmm.
have a Rolls Royce, people will hate on you. So have a fucking Rolls Royce.
Yeah. Very true. Very, very true.
They'll
All right.
hate on you anyway.
You're 100% right. And this is great to look. And this is I come from a place, I've coached probably somewhere in the neighborhood now of about 12,000 men. And I have traveled the world. I do speaking engagements. I connect with men at very high levels. We put them through very difficult times, through a lot of deep programs that are physical and mental. These are rites of passages, and so we push men to their limit, and hopefully that they can rise up and be better individuals. And one thing that I have found, and I'm going to let you know where I'm going to go with this here, is that, we talk about mindset. And there are those who are willing to make the sacrifices, who are willing to put in the time, who are willing to put in the effort. But what I notice, and I don't know if come across this, especially you have large communities where you deal with people, man or woman, there's there's a few of those who have tremendous ambition and drive, and here I go, purpose. You mentioned purpose earlier, and that right there, that immediately lit everything up for me, because a purpose driven individual, man or woman, in my book is unstoppable. Nothing is stopping that individual. However, the question here is, how do you find purpose?
So another thing we're not taught in school, which is a crime against humanity, really is, imagine if your teacher sat you down and said, who are you and what are you meant to do with your life when you're 15 and you're confused? And you go, well, I don't know, sir, because we call them sir in England. Um, and we call our prime minister sir. That's an irony. um, and then your teacher says, go away and think about it. And you go away and think about it. Who am I? What am I supposed to do with my life? I like the drums. Oh, I like this subject, but I'm not sure. And you go back, and then the next day, your teacher says, who are you and what you're supposed to do with your life? Because, we all have a purpose, and your purpose is to find your purpose. And we all have a space and a place, and I want to help you find yours. So have another think. Who are you and what you're meant to do with your life? Like, why did no teacher ever ask me that when I was 15 and confused? Because being 15 is confusing. Why? Now, imagine if you're lost and today you ask yourself that question, and then you get a little bit of data, and then tomorrow you ask that question, and then in a week or a month or a year, you find it, because you always find it in the end if you keep asking. That it is as simple as that. Now, when I was lost and broke, I didn't know. And then I was like, I've got to get out of debt. Like, I couldn't see the purpose above getting out of debt, but getting out of debt's a good start. And then I was out of debt. It was like, okay, I've got to start a business. Okay, maybe my purpose is to have a small business. I've got to make 10 grand a month. Maybe that's my purpose. I've got to make 1 million. I'm a millionaire. Now what? I'm a real estate investor. Okay, well, oh no, wait a minute. I help entrepreneurs. I help startup business owners. Oh, wait a minute. My purpose is to help as many people on this planet get better financial knowledge. So as long as you keep going and you sort your debt and then your income, and then your freedom, and then you start to help your clients and your community and your country and your continent, and then you get your vision global, then you are an unstoppable force.
Love that. Very powerful. All right. What is your biggest fear?
Um, well, you could probably answer this now with my earlier answer. My biggest fear is probably being alone, like alone, alone.
Hmm.
Probably being alone around a lot of people. That's harder for me.
Hmm.
I've really had to learn to be good and comfortable being alone, and it's really strengthened me as a person. But I would probably say being alone or being useless.
Hmm.
That they would probably be my two greatest fears, and they're probably the things that are driving me the most to be entrepreneurial. I became a millionaire just before age 31, a decamillionaire before age 35. I retired at age 28, 32, 35. I'm 46. I'm writing my 21st book. We have a completely new vision now. We have 12 companies, 100 staff, and I feel like I'm just starting. And yeah, I've got this big vision. And yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to be more successful. But I guess what I'm ultimately doing is avoiding being alone and being useless. That's a big part of the driver for growing the business as well as the goals and the outcomes. So yeah, being alone and useless are probably my two greatest fears.
You mentioned that you have a partner for 20 years. Help me out here because that's almost unheard of in our day and age. Partnerships come and go, and it's difficult to, have a business with someone. How have you made it work for 20 years?
Yeah, it's very rare. And how we have made it work for 20 years, because obviously there's a we, is number one, we met where we were at a similar point in life.
Hmm.
So we were both youngish. We were both recently single-ish. And we both wanted to really go big into business and real estate. We didn't really know how. So we met because if you've been in business 20 years and then you try and get a business partner and you've got 20 years worth of equity and growth, and how do you get them in and how are you at a level? That doesn't always work. So
Sure.
number one, we were at a similar time in our life. You don't have to be the same, number one. Number two, we had a similar vision. We both wanted to be hardcore, rich motherfuckers. Obviously, it's become more elegant
Yeah.
since and more meaningful, but we wanted to be rich real estate guys.
Right.
Then the next thing is we had a very different, and we still do a very different set of skills. He's brilliant with legal, technical, operational, practical, analytical. I'm good with strategy, vision, sales, marketing, brand.
Yeah.
So similar vision and completely different set of skills, really important so there's no duplication. Then along the way, making agreements and sticking to them. We made an agreement, no other business partners unless the other one agrees. Don't go into any other business unless the other one agrees. And if you start another business, fine, the other one gets half. So
Wow.
my business
Okay.
partner gets half all my book sales, half all my brand deals, half all the revenue from the podcast, half all the profit from the training businesses, and I get half of all the equity and the cash flow from the 350 odd rental units we have. And that was just clean. And we didn't have, we just shook hands on that. And then it is managing conflict well. So my natural disposition is conflict avoidance. His natural disposition is he loves to negotiate. So he quite likes conflict. So we've got quite a different natural disposition. So he probably had to learn to manage his emotions a bit. I had to learn to confront some of mine a bit. And we both learned to adapt, to treat each other with respect. So we have this kind of unwritten rule, which is whoever has the greatest sense of ownership and belief of a decision, the other one will usually back off. So we don't have like this rule where if we have a disagreement, we have arbitration and a third party, because then that just gets awkward in your shareholders meetings.
Hmm.
So if my business partner is hell bent on something, I'll trust him. If I'm hell bent on something, he'll trust me. And we've probably had 5 arguments, 2 big ones, 2 or 3 main areas of conflict, and we just deal with them.
Well, holy crap. That's great because a lot of the things that you're saying here make a lot of sense. You guys trust each other. In the end, you trust each other and you'll back each other, across the board. Doesn't matter. That's very powerful. The One of the things I want to talk about is money, right? I hear this. Money is the root of all evil.
Said no rich person ever.
Ever. Amen, amen to that. How do we get the mentality of, money is bad, material things are bad, enjoying the fruits of your labor are bad. How do we get out of that funk for those individuals who just cannot, break away from that narrow mentality?
Okay, so I believe that the quote or the translation of the quote or the adaptation of the quote that money is the root of all evil or the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil is factually incorrect, regardless of what religious script it came from. Here's why. Because money does not have the ability to be evil. Because money has no conscience. It is a tool. Like, how can that be evil and how can loving that be evil? It's just a tool. Like, if you want to be accurate in scripture, money is a universal exchange of value. Money is a store of value. Money is a store of time, value, and energy. That's actually factually what money is. So if you think about this, we won't have this left much longer because we'll have central digital currency. So I will use it for a demonstration. But $20 or £20, that is a storage of someone else's time. That is a store of £20 of units worth of energy. That's all it is. Wow. So with this, I could probably feed 20 kids for 20 days in the poorest country in the world. With this, I could buy 20 bullets and put them in a magazine and shoot the same 20 kids dead. What is it? It's a tool. It's a lever. It's a multiplier. It's an exaggerator. So if you are evil, this tool will exaggerate your evil. If you are philanthropic, this tool will exaggerate your philanthropy. So it's not money or the love of money that is the root of all evil. It's evil people are the root of all evil. And by the way, there is rich evil people, but there's also broke evil people. You're in law enforcement. I bet it's not really rich people are doing petty theft on the streets because they probably don't need to. Maybe it is sometimes, but sometimes you steal because you have to, because you're broke. I don't know. So if we disassociate the beliefs, values, projections, fears, doubts, judgments from money and just realize it's a great tool. Like a hammer's a great tool. It can put a nail in, and then if you get it wrong, you can pull a nail out. It's better than using your fingers. Money is a great tool at storing time, value, and energy. Now, you're in law enforcement. You don't put the hammer on trial for murder. You put the person who used it to smash someone's skull on trial for murder. And this is what I'm trying to teach people, that money is just a tool. And if you have a great relationship with it and you learn to use it well, it's a great leverage for freedom, for choice, for travel, for luxury. But if you have a bad relationship with it and you reject it and you judge others for having it, money makes a great servant but a terrible master.
Love that. Love that. So I retired from law enforcement about 4.5 years ago. Before I went into law enforcement, I was on Wall Street. I was a very successful Wall Street broker for 13, 14 years. And, one day I sat across from my wife and I said, look, I'm going to go from making almost $1 million a year. This was back in the 90s, to being a cop. My goal was to be a narcotics cop. And, she, is a very supportive woman. She said, good, great, whatever. And I shifted my life. Okay. Now, as I went through the process of being in law enforcement and the almost 20 years that my career was flourishing and doing all great things and very interesting things, what I noticed is that the way that I had been raised before, coming up, was that my parents and the culture, my family is Cuban, they I don't want to say they frowned on money, but everything was, listen, you work for your money, you trade your time for your money, right? I mean, it wasn't about being successful and building, and going out there and buying property and buying recurring, going out there and establishing recurring revenue and none of that. That wasn't something that I grew up with. I had to find that out myself when I went through Wall Street. It was an opportunity to really learn and sit in tables with billionaires and have that great opportunity. In law enforcement, what I saw was back to my childhood. Most cops, that's all they know. Trade time for money, work overtime, go out there and just, I got to pay the bills this month, so I'm going to work a little bit extra. So where I'm going with this here is that I came, coming from Wall Street and going into law enforcement, where they're dynamically different the way you make money. I mean, Wall Street is all about investing. It's a whole different world. And law enforcement, it's all about just working more to make more money. Now, my question here is the mindset of those who are constantly trading time for money and who don't have the ability to think outside the box, to grow, to join masterminds, to go out there and get mentorship because they feel like they're going to spend the money and they're not going to get anything back. How, you've been doing this for a while. How do you go out there and convey your thought and your experience to let people know that, look, it's a mind shift that needs to happen for you to come on board here and start building like yourself, investing and growing? What are the strategies that you use for that? Because I'm completely lost when it comes to that.
Okay. So I think that there are 4 levels in your attainment of wealth. There's labor, management, leadership, and visionary. So people say you've got to work harder to make more money. But there's a ceiling on that whereby you can't make any more money without doing overtime. And then once you get to the ceiling on overtime, you literally can't make any more money unless you have a divorce and never see your kids and burn out. Mm-hmm. So there's a big ceiling to your wealth on labor. And in our country, maybe in yours, some of the most amazing respected professions, firefighters, nurses, people in the police, they work hard. And yet there's people out there teaching you got to work hard to be rich. No. J. Paul Getty, one of the pound for pound, inflation adjusted richest people in the world, said, never work too hard to be rich. So school and your colleagues and your peers and everyone teaches you work harder and harder and harder. The system wants you to work harder and harder and harder because you pay more tax and you're more stuck and you're in more debt. Mm-hmm. No, you only work hard to get to the top of the labor tree. Then you have to become a manager. And a manager, like in the police, I guess the managers, they're not on the streets anymore.
That's right.
And in the trades, the managers aren't on the tools. So you push through labor, you hit a ceiling, you're gonna go broke or bust or burn out. Then you've got to push through to manager, where you're pulling some strings, but you're still only really in the middle, and you might get a 6-figure salary, but it's going to be a low 6-figure salary. And in the UK, that's taxed a lot. So if you want to push beyond that, you've got to become a leader. You've got to get to the top of the tree, which is either start your own business or get right to the top of the company. But then when you're a visionary, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, etc., that's when you can earn the billionaires. And it's inverse. The visionaries are working the least and thinking the most. People who are doing labor are working the most and thinking the least. And society has it bottom up, and the school system teaches you bottom up. And it's old fashioned from the industrial age where we needed a load of those laborers to run our economy. But now with AI and the internet and social media, all these laborers they're gonna have no job in 10 or 15 years. House building will be done through 3D printing, and many of these really important but low-level jobs will be gone. So if you want to hack that, number one, never work too hard to be rich. You kindly complimented me before you hit record about my book, Life Leverage. Learn about leverage. I leverage my business partner's experience. I leverage the bank's money. I leverage private finance money. I leverage mentors. I leverage podcasts. People listen to you. They get more knowledge. People come on your trainings. They go through more challenge. They become stronger. They join higher level groups. You push through until you meet billionaires. This is all leveraging other people's time, other people's money, other people's experience, other people's resources. So you've got to unlearn what society and school and your peers and the government taught you and want you to know. And you've got to learn you have to think in terms of leverage and vision and ideas and creativity and resourcefulness and solutions, not in hard work, harder work, harder work, harder work.
Awesome. So let's kind of reverse engineer this and go the opposite way. Then there's also other people who are out there, and you see them all over Instagram and Facebook and so on and TikTok, where, these young men are buying Lamborghinis and all sorts of cool cars, and but in reality they are not leveraging it properly. They think that just by making content, somehow they're going to build a foundation of business. And in my opinion, anyways, I don't think that that is going to really help them grow from a business perspective. I've seen, especially in Miami, they go out there, they rent these cars, and it's a constant cycle. They're trying to get too far too fast. They're not putting in, like we discussed, the time and the effort and the knowledge and the experience is not going, it's not moving in the right direction for them. They just want it overnight. They want to have it tomorrow. What are your thoughts on that? Trying to get rich overnight, trying to do things like immediately, trying to hack. Do you think also, I'm going to add to this question, do you think that hacking the system or hacking something, making it a shorter vessel, shorter distance, do you think that that is good for someone starting a business?
Okay, so you definitely don't want to go broke trying to look rich. But there's a saying, fake it until you make it. I don't really like that. I like be it till you see it. Mm-hmm. But I never disrespect anyone who's trying. And we all have to go through a rite of passage. We try, we fail, we try, we fail, we try, we fail. And there aren't that many entrepreneurs in the world. And in the UK, we're getting taxed to death and exiling all the millionaires. Mm-hmm. So anyone who's trying to make a good, honest living as an entrepreneur, trying their best, they always have my support. Because some of them might be just trying, mm-hmm. But, they just don't know any different. The fakers, well, let's let life teach the fakers. Because life will teach the fakers, because it always does. Because you always have to pay your entrance fee. You want to get in anywhere, you always have to pay your entrance fee. You don't get to be black belt, you have to go through the ranks. You want to get into a private club, you have to pay the money or know someone. So you either pay with mistakes, or you pay with failure, or you pay with mentorship and courses and knowledge and experience in advance. I don't know that there's a right or a wrong way, because I admire someone who just tries and goes for it and faces their fears and fails and gets back again and tries again. And America is the best land in the world for embracing that mentality. In the UK, we always frown over entrepreneurs who fail, and we want them to fail because it makes us feel better. So I really respect the kind of American dream. Try it, fail, we'll support you, you'll start again. The country will financially support you. Go for it. You failed 3 times, good, try the 4th. So I want a bit of that culture in the UK. Anyone who's faking it, they'll get found out. And I'm not going to bother. I'm too busy doing my own stuff. Now, in terms of hacking and shortening the distance, you can shorten the distance, but there is no like wormhole event horizon where there's no distance. So, how long would it take you to be rich being a bricklayer? A lot longer than being a successful information marketing entrepreneur. How long would it take you to get rich being a nurse? A lot longer than if you have a really good AI agency. So some business models are quicker than others, and some people can do it quicker than others. But we say in England, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a fucking duck. So if it stinks and if it's obviously a scam, it's going to be a scam.
Love it. All right. What are your thoughts nowadays, specifically in when, if you're starting a business that you must use and leverage social media? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you'd be a fool not to, because 30 years ago, how did you start a business? You went to the bank manager, you got a massive loan for a property you couldn't afford, you refit it with money you'd never get back, you buy a load of stock, and then you sit in the shop and you pray that people walking on the high street will come in and buy something off you. That was the conventional business 30 years ago if you wanted to start a business. Advertising was TV, radio, or print media, and it would cost you tens or hundreds of thousands just to get in the door. Like to have an ad on TV could be hundreds of thousands or millions. Now, for free, you can reach 1 billion people. For free. So when people say, oh, there's so much shit on social media, or social media is really hard, or there's so many different platforms on social media, cry me a river. These are first world problems. No one's starving. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed with how much opportunity there is out there. Cry me a river. It's a first world problem. So, look, social media is busy. Just like Google Ads is busy. There's competitors, there's bullshitters, there's algorithms, there's mainstream media lies. It's still a bit the Wild West. Now there's AI creating content on social media. But we met on social media, and without social media, we would have never have met. And all these people listening probably met you on social media, and without social media, we wouldn't know each other. And we're 5,000 miles away from each other talking in real time. So anyone says social media doesn't work, or it's distracting, or it's too hard, it's 2025. Wake up.
Love it. So let's talk about AI. And do you really believe that it's going to start cutting into the workforce? You mentioned something about that, and my opinion is I think it's going to happen. And people, especially the low level, especially the level jobs, those are, I think they're going to be extinct in the next 4 to 5 years. So what are your thoughts on AI and how we can use them, building companies?
Yeah, so AI is going to disrupt like social media disrupted, like the internet disrupted. Like retail parks disrupted the central high street or main street. So yeah, AI is the next evolution of disruption. Will it be evolution or will it be revolution? We'll only be able to tell when we look back. Many jobs will be gone because they won't be needed because AI will do it quicker, cheaper, and better. But it will also create a load of new jobs on top. So this happened in the industrial age with the factory line when Henry Ford built like a manufacturing line, and there's less manual laborers doing the work, but then there's people operating the machinery, and your skill level goes up, and then you need designers and people to make the tooling. So new jobs are created, old jobs are gone. So if you're an entrepreneur, you will find a way to leverage AI to create a new job that will make you 10 times the wage of the labor job that got extinct.
One of the things that I find about AI, and for the most part, it's all positive, with the exception of we are trending to everything that we do, if we're going to write a sentence, if we're going to write a paragraph, or we're going to go and debate something, you're going out there and you're letting the AI, the algorithm, or whatever, the chat GPT write it for you. And I see a lot of people that are, let's just say, they're great debaters online, but when you speak to them in person, it's like a completely different individual. And what are your thoughts on maybe decaying the ability for us to think on our own 2 feet and being able to create on the fly with our brains instead of going to chat GPT for everything we do?
Yeah, I did a post on LinkedIn which did pretty well, got a lot of reach, where I said that AI is making you stupid.
I
If
didn't
you
see that.
don't,
Okay.
if you don't use your brain is a muscle. You use it, it expands. You don't use it, it decays and dies. So AI is great for leverage, but you still need to maintain your muscle. So, for example, I used to pay a researcher, junior editor, about £6,000 per book I wrote. Now I just use Grok. But I write the book. Grok, ChatGPT, whatever
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
use, helps me research, get my facts right, access a deeper, more historical and broader set of information. But my personality, my tone, no tone is able to no AI is able to copy my tone yet. Even if there was the best visual AI platform, it would not be able to copy my energy and my tone. And I don't think it ever will. So use AI as the tool, not the replacement. Do not stop exercising your brain, because it is your most important tool.
Mhm.
I train like yourself, and I spar, and I refuse to do head sparring. I'm 46, and that is my most important muscle. And some people are, oh, why don't you do normal sparring? And they try and go me, and oh, you need to do it. But no, we do body sparring because, if I get a bruised rib, I get a bruised rib.
Right.
Your brain is your most important muscle. So you use AI to make your life better, not to replace your life. And, you also need to think about, one day you're going to need to be recorded live like this. One day you're going to be doing a live speech. One day you're going to meet people live if you want to grow your brand and your business. So I never use filters on social media ever. I refuse. I mean, I think they should be banned. I think it should be illegal to have filters.
Don't tell
And
that to all these women out there. They'll
but
freak out.
and men now, Rafa, and men. But yeah, but like, you're misselling yourself. You
Yeah.
become a letdown. Your online persona becomes more removed from who you are. So visually, you don't look like that.
Sure.
And now we don't speak and have the same knowledge and diction as in real life. That's a problem. And so you're going to be the biggest letdown when you meet people. So I just use AI for help and research.
I couldn't agree with you more. All right. Before we move on to the final section here, I would love for you to give me three steps or three elements or characteristics for someone who is listening here that wants to start building a company or wants to start investing in something, that wants to get out of the rut. All right. Three things that you believe are so important for that individual to finally take it to the next level.
Okay, I would say step one would be to highlight or find a problem that enough people seem to have. The reason that social media and the internet is the greatest tool for business and making good money in the modern world is because we can learn and find everyone's problems in a nanosecond. And everyone's sharing their problems on social media, and with AI, we can find them really quick. So entrepreneurs solve problems. Deep, meaningful problems you can charge a lot for, or simple, small problems, but you can sell millions or billions of them. If you notice this can, I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, Rafa, but do you remember when you used to pull the ring pull off?
Of course. Yes.
And it was sharp and it would cut you and it was really bad
Yes.
with
Yeah.
litter?
Yes.
This person who designed this one, as long as they got the patent, will be a billionaire. And now you unscrew bottles and it's the top stays attached. As long as that person got the unique patent, that person will be a billionaire. So you solve a very small problem for a lot of people, or a very big problem at a high fee that you can charge. That's step one. Step two is just fucking start. So I wrote a book called Start Now, Get Perfect Later. Because too many people are scared, or they're a perfectionist, or they're overwhelmed, or they just want to do a bit more testing, or they just, want to make sure they get it right, or they don't want to fail, or whatever. You have to put your version one, not quite finished, ink not quite dry version out to the market. That would be step two. And then step three, I would say, is get good at marketing. Because the only conventional thing I think around business and money that I actually think should stay in schools and should be taught more is marketing. Because marketing is, how do you solve a problem for a market and they pay you for it? And some of the best entrepreneurs in the world are simply great marketers who figured out how to do the back end operational stuff afterwards. Jake Paul, amazing marketer. Andrew Tate, amazing marketer. Steve Jobs, amazing marketer. Donald Trump, amazing marketer. Elon Musk, amazing marketer. Oprah Winfrey, amazing marketer.
Well, amen to that. All right, Rob, where can people follow you on social media? And I don't know if you have a website. We can put this all in the show notes here.
So I'm everywhere on social media. Just my name, Rob Moore. Whatever social channel you're on, I'm on, and you'll find me. A central resource, probably the best place is money.school. So money.school, like I said earlier, is my vision is to help as many people on this planet get better financial knowledge, and I'm taking on the entire school system with money.school, except it costs less than 1% of what going to college will cost you. It's an online membership platform where there's hundreds of hours of courses, resources, and masterclasses to make, manage, and multiply money. I'd probably go there, money.school. Costs like a few pence or cents a day. You can cancel anytime. Money.school.
Very good. We'll put that on the show notes. And finally, the new book that's coming out. What is the name of that book?
Money School.
Okay.
See what I did there?
All right, gotcha. Money School. We'll put that also. Amazon, anywhere it could be purchased, pretty much.
That's not out yet.
Okay.
I'm still writing it, but my book, Money, Life Leverage, Starting Out, Get Perfect Later, they're all on Amazon.
Awesome. All right, Rob, man, it was an honor to have you on. A great talk. I loved it. Definitely we'll get some shorts out of this for sure. There was some fun stuff there. So again, thank you for being on, and I look forward to having you on soon.
Thanks, Rafa.